What's up, legends? Welcome to Blindside's 2026 preseason analysis. First fleet of our preseason analysis, I guess, on the teams. We're starting with the Broncos here. One of our regular podcast guests in Brownie isn't with us today. Unfortunately, he's lost his family dog. So very sad time for him. He won't be with us for the first three recordings, but thoughts and prayers go out to him.
Yeah, man, we're thinking about you, dude. Miss you heaps.
Yeah, dude, sad time. So Broncos coming into 2026 have a pretty good buy schedule in terms of early investment. Buys around 12, 16, and 19, meaning that you can invest early. They don't have a single buy until round 12, but over Origin, they do miss one major and two minors. So you can invest from round 20 in the run home, but the way I'm looking at it is invest early, avoid over Origin, buy in the run home. Do you see it any different to that?
No, I agree. I think if you're going to go Broncos, you'd buy early. They've also got a really quite tough start to the season as well. So that's another reason why you'd have to be quite careful with who you go for. So they start with Panthers, Eels at home, then Storm away, and then Finns back at home. So I do think that they've got quite a tricky beginning, which is a great time to be able to actually see what they're doing. I think if you've got defense heavy players that you're looking into, then definitely they're going to be right up there for some of your best points generators and probably money makers early, which would be high defense, maybe not attack.
Well, I guess that is moves us into like the first player discussion for me, which is Reece Walsh. He's priced at 654K, a hell of a lot less than what he finished on in 2025. 2025 average of 51.4 after a poor start to the season and a massive finish to the year. I'm projecting him at a 0.65 ppm this year for a 52 average, so roughly the same as this year. But I think he's a hell risky buy to start with, and he's more of a watch. Do you have any input on how you see Reece Walsh?
Yeah, it's the value for me again. So I'm really looking for value in that first 6 weeks. It's just, can I make as much money as possible? I think in a position that there's better value to be made with other players, then I'm definitely looking there. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to have Walsh. I think he's an absolute gun, incredible to watch, but he just doesn't have the same value that you can get elsewhere with other players.
Yeah, I agree. And there's also that issue with playing with Adam Reynolds and playing without, where
Yeah.
the averages are so starkly different. Like without Reynolds, he is averaging through the roof. And granted, he had poor form to start the season in 2025 and got to good form at the end, which definitely plays a part in that variance. But I think that he definitely doesn't dominate gameplay management and involvement when Adam Reynolds is in the side. So my
Mm.
thing is just watch him. I think he'll come down in value. He might bottom out at around 600, mid 500K bracket. That's when I'd probably look to invest. But look, by that time, it's Origin. So I think he's a run home candidate for me. Do you have anyone you're immediately interested in for 2026?
So I've already touched on it again when it comes to centres. Centres are really tricky. And I do think Staggs is someone who is starting to really find unbelievable form that we saw last year. I would definitely think and predict that he'll be very similar, if not continue to become better. I think he's kind of matching what we saw with Herbie, where each new season with Herbie, he's just gone better and better and better. I think we're going to see the same thing with Staggs. And so right now, Staggs is 3.7% ownership. So you would be getting yourself into an excellent pod range. He is awkwardly priced though. Again, like a lot of these options within centre, the price just isn't quite right. It's really going to come down to your strategy, whether or not you are going really, really big in centres. You know, you're starting with Herbie, for example, or are you kind of going with someone who is on the rise, like a Stags, and you're pairing them with a newbie, and in the hope that, like, say, a Tom Chester does get centre DPP, which is kind of what we're expecting, and you paired those two together, I could see that working and working really well. But it's really going to come down to your strategy versus payoff with value. So that's something to really consider.
Yeah, Stags wasn't really in my frame, but mostly because of what you said there, the awkward price for an extra
Yeah.
what 80, 90K, you've
Yeah.
got Jacob Carraz. So it's like, I might just throw a bit more money into that and step up into his range. But that
But you
said,
might want to actually put that 80, 90K into your mids And
Yeah.
that can be the difference between having like a Stewart and I'm trying to think someone else cheaper, Mooney,
Mm.
starting. You can bump one of those up to a Yo who's undervalued, or you can reach Huss and May and have those two together, or whatever else. Because ultimately, I think that is where we're going to be making the most of our points from the start of the year. So you might then find, actually, I don't have 80, 90K, but I can get Stags. I do believe he's going to go much higher. He's going to keep growing, and he's going to be kind of closer to a Herbie-esque type player. Yeah, so that's what I'm meaning by your strategy. That might be what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there. And I guess in a center market where there's literally no options of
Mm,
real value, we've got the perceived options, as you said there, potentially Chester. People have got Macassini as mad at high ownership, but
yeah.
I don't see him fitting into that Tigers backline. Farley with the Dragons. I've heard news that Sedu too is ahead of him in the pecking order, so there's a very high chance he might not even get a start this year. We're in that range now where, yeah, you could buy high to secure the position, but really anyone you buy could be the one in a sense.
Yeah.
It's like, is this center just a dice roll in 2026?
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is what you and I have talked about is who am I willing to trust in my 17?
Mm,
Like if it's Fale or Makasini or all these other boys, I'm not really that keen to have them in my 17. I want them in my reserve somewhere and loopholing them somehow. But with a Stags, I would feel a lot better off putting him in my 17. So that's really where the trade-off is, and that's where the conversation really hits.
interesting. Yeah, I will have a bit more of a look at Stags. He kind of gives me this Kale Eero vibes as well. Like, are we
Yeah.
looking in that same bracket? So,
So I would put them very, very similarly, and I'd say that either of them are going to be very, very similar, probably output value, those sorts of things. So they are very similar.
well, next play for me, I think it's poetry for me to bring this guy up. It's Payne Haas. In 2026, he is an avoid. No, I'm just he's not an
And
avoid.
that's where we lost Jay again.
Yeah. No, he was first picked in my team, and I put the C on him straight away, in my mind to make up for my ignorance in 2025. He is borderline must have. And as we've kind of touched on in past potties in the past, if you've been with us for a while, you will have heard us say this before. But the best period of a season for Payne Haas is the first 12 rounds. As
Yeah.
soon as you enter Origin, you have that stagnation. Well, is he obviously going to be playing Origin? So he misses those games. Then they have a bad Origin schedule, the Broncos. So he also won't get to play much in between that. And then he typically starts to die off a little bit more in the run home than he did at the start of the season. Not saying sell him in the run home or avoid him in the run home. He's someone you want all year if possible. But the best time to own him is the start of the year, and there's no way in the world I am overlooking him this year. Do you have anything
Yeah.
to add to that one?
No, I think absolute must have. I think he's got to be in your team. He's got to be the captain immediately. Yeah, definitely starting with him. He's definitely my captain. But it's his mid pairing, his lock partner that really to me is the other person to really look into is Carrigan, 2.7% owned right now. Again, he's a slightly awkward price, but I do think that if you are looking for that real difference maker, he's someone that is still hard to beat. He's a top five lock, if not top
Yeah.
three in the game. Yeah, so I definitely think he's someone to really look into as well.
Yeah, he can average well and truly over 50 as well.
Yeah.
And this is what we've seen this happening last year. Carrigan was a great buy basically all of last year in 2025, but he never got much of a start in most teams because
Yeah.
there were so many other players dominant around him. So if you're looking for an early pod who will likely stay pretty poddish all year,
Yeah.
Patrick Carrigan is an easy, easy way in.
The other thing too is that there's that perceived, and it's probably not perceived, it's actually true that he does do less when Huss is in the team and going gangbusters, and Carrigan's always better without Huss. But the other thing too to consider is that he's still scoring into the 50s with Huss. So,
Mm,
and then his average skyrockets without Huss. So, I think overall, if you're going to tell me here's a player who is less than 5% owned, but is still averaging in high 40s, early 50s, week in, week out, would you take him? Yeah, I would. So,
100%.
I think sometimes that gets overstated that, oh, he's not as good when Huss plays. The reality is he's just a damn good player anytime.
What really caps him is his minutes. If he
Yeah.
plays less than, say, 60, that's really what kills him. Like here, you can see a little stat line from round 7 to round 14. He didn't score under, or he scored under 60 once in the
Yeah.
71-minute performance. 66, 54, 68, 68, 63, 65, 61.
And
It's
is
like
that with Huss playing as well?
that's with Haas playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got
Yeah.
the filter on now. Without Haas, he only played 2 games last year for a 56 and a 54. So obviously the season average overall for with Haas is 53.6. So it suits your narrative there of like, and we already know that from years and years of
Yeah.
playing Haas and Carrigan playing together. When Haas isn't in the team, Carrigan steps up. When he's in the team, he tends to play a little bit lower. But I think the way Maguire's using them now, they're both very much vital. And I think the closer that we see Carrigan play to 80, the closer he breaches to that high 50s, low 60s mark as an average,
Yeah.
which is a reach. But damn, I'm definitely considering him for sure. Just the price point's awkward.
It is. And a lot of these players that we're talking about, unfortunately, do have an awkward. So you could probably only really fit one of them.
That's
All
right.
of these awkward kind of players we're talking about.
Yeah. And do you want to avoid Haas like I did in 2025 to get Carrigan? I don't think so. Haas is definitely my pick. Now, I think the last one I want to talk about here with the Bronx is Orblix Tawa. I think that's how you
Yeah.
pronounce his last name. Now, coming from the Dolphins, he played limited minutes for them in 2025, but looked absolutely incredible. Now, Piakura's been injured, and we've got mixed news on that. Now, the club's
Mm.
reporting that it's at least 8 weeks, medial ligament tear, I think it is.
Yeah.
He has commented on Isaac Izza's post on Instagram, basically saying that he's already running and he'll only be gone for 1 to 2 weeks. Yet, I seen a report come out basically talking about Orblix possibly going to the World Club Challenge and playing in the second row position. That
Yeah.
reiterated that Piakura is out for at least 8 weeks. So I'm seeing mixed reports here, and it's willing to bet that what we're seeing is a player that is kind of in denial and really wants to be there, really wants to play, doesn't want to be injured, is doing anything he can to come back versus what the facts are in accordance with his injury. But this does open the door for Orblix. Now, in a 60-minute role, let's say at least playing second row, which is expected, I guess. Broncos typically always play that, like the Jack Gachewski, I think it was Jaden Hunt at times last year from the bench. So let's say 60 minutes minimum. Is he someone that you would look at for investment? So I've got here playing in 60 minutes at a 0.74 ppm. He's going to average 44.4.
Honestly, if he gets named and we get a little bit more information, I'd want to know, firstly, though, there's a bit more information around Piakura and if he's going to end up being out for a bit longer. If I've got a runway of 3 to 4 weeks, I would see Tawa as a burner, and I would be willing to invest in him for 3 to 4 weeks, make as much cash as I can. Because quite honestly, like you're saying, a Bronco edge who's getting 60 plus minutes, I'm absolutely sold. And if he's coming into the app at like 230, even 250, 280, I would absolutely snap at it and go for it. So, hell yeah. So I'm going to be watching that World Club Challenge massively, really, really closely to watch him. The other thing
Yeah.
to consider as well is that I don't see them taking Piakura, even say he is like 10% down on his best. He's actually coming through the injury way better than first reports, all the rest of it. There's no way they're going to risk him for the World Club Challenge. There's just no
Yeah.
way. So you can guarantee he's going to be there. I reckon that's the game to watch, and I'll just be watching it, not just for fun, but mostly for the Tawa watch, because I think that will give us a really, really good understanding of what he can do, how they're going to play him, what role he's going to have. Remember, I keep saying it, choose your players on the role, and I think that's going to be a really, really important thing to be able to see with him. I think people could get suckered in, though, thinking that, it's 8 weeks, we've got this massive runway. It could only be 2 weeks, and then you're going to be already getting rid of him. So if it's a 2 week window, I possibly just would, let him through to the keeper and look for the value elsewhere, because there is a hell of a lot of value in Edge.
There's a ton of value in the edge, and that he's currently sitting in my team, Orblex, just more of like so I don't forget about him. He's
Yeah.
someone that's kind of like part of my team chemistry, so I can see where he fits. The big benefit to me is that if he does line up in edge, he gets mid-edge dual, and I do think that he's priced at 31 currently, 44 average. He's justified himself there. It's over 10 points of value. He's sitting close to 13. My perspective is that I don't necessarily think that that edge spot's Piakura's. And I think if he impresses enough and dominates enough in that position, he could make it his own. Then all of a sudden, Piakura becomes that bench edge that rotates on for 20 minutes. And we've seen it last year.
Yeah,
He
we
got
did.
played for 20 minutes. So I don't necessarily think it is Piakura's. And All Blacks, from all reports, is an absolute gun. And he looked
Yeah.
great for the Finns. So,
And the reality is all he's got to do is probably out defend Piakura, which, to be
yeah.
honest, is not hard to do.
Yeah.
So ultimately, if he can have much better stats around his defense, I think they would absolutely stay with him. Because what we were watching Piakura do was charge out of the line, lay a hand on the player and slide off them because he's come up way too hot, leave gaps in behind. He
Yeah.
was doing crazy things. He was giving away penalties. He got sin bin a couple of times from just, like almost being a puppy on that field, too much energy. So for
Yeah.
me, I think you're bang on. All Blacks could actually steal that role just by being a little bit more concise with his defense. And actually, that'll help us massively when it comes to scoring within fantasy too, because every time Piakura touched someone and fell off them, there's -2 points. So
Yeah.
I think there was
Or
that
a
game. Yeah,
HIA.
exactly. And wasn't there that game when he like got -2, then HIA and was off? And I think he finished the game on like -10 or
That's
negative
right.
eight.
I remember that.
Ridiculous defensive plays. He's someone I still am not trust with. I don't trust him, and I wouldn't be running out to grab.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Even though Piakura, he does present value if he gets the starting position.
Yeah,
We've seen this in 2024. Everyone jumped on, never eventuated. 2025, same thing again. People were more hesitant, didn't eventuate. And it's like, we're looking at the same thing again in 2026. Do you take the punt? There's no
yeah.
way I'd throw my
And
money
it's
at
just a
that,
liability to your fantasy scoring. Ultimately, is how I feel.
especially with the edge market being so dominant with
Oh,
options. It's like, why
absolutely.
bother? And I guess the other thing to add to Orblex is he's currently 1.48% owned. I guess that will change once
Yeah.
round one lists come out and he might be named starting. But yeah, I guess that's all the players I'm really interested for the Broncos. Is there anything more you want to add? I guess maybe the only conversation is Josiah Karapani going to start over Grant Anderson? I've got Grant Anderson starting in my team.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really care what way that goes from a fantasy perspective.
No,
Both,
I'm probably not going to invest in either of them. Katapani is an awesome player, and it'd be pretty rough on him, considering he was, one of their better players, better attacking players at the end of last year in their grand final run. But they've bought Grant Anderson for a reason,
yeah,
and I don't see them investing to have him on the bench or just a top 30 player. They're going to be starting with him. And
100.
that'd be dumb not to. He's a great player, but again, I don't really have fantasy interest there. I also don't have interest in Granddaddy Reynolds. Don't want to have his hamstrings on my team, and also same with Benny Hunt.
Yeah,
Again, I love the two boys dearly. I think they're phenomenal players. Love to watch them. Love to see them get up, and it'd be really cool if they could go back to back. But I just don't want to own them.
Hunt is horrible when playing hooker anyway
Yeah,
these days. He doesn't not horrible as a player in terms of his fantasy scoring. He's just not worth it. And Adam Reynolds, I guess there's probably an argument for an early season punt if you wanted to take him on. High risk because like the wind blows too hard, his hamstrings will
but there's
bust.
just way too much value in halves. So
Yeah,
why would you take the risk? There's
yeah.
just no point.
Would you pay for Adam Reynolds or would you go for Mitch Moses or Adam Dewey?
Correct.
One of those options, way better than the likes of Reynolds. But I guess that's it. We had a few questions here from listeners. Is Haas a buyer and avoid blind year excluded from Haas chat? I think it's more than established that Haas is a buy, and if you're not buying, you're just going to repeat what I did last year. Is Reece Walsh worth the punt? We kind of established that he's high risk. I'm going to wait for him to
Yeah,
hopefully lose some value. Patrick Carrigan, we touched on him too. That he's got some pod value, but it's hard to justify buying Haas and Carrigan to start your year.
agree.
Any cheapies in the Broncos? None on the horizon for me.
It's
Not really.
really only All Blacks. Yeah.
Yeah. That's it for the Broncos. Remember to follow Brownie's breakdown, even though he's not here, the poor bugger. Hopefully he's doing all right. Kenty's market moves. He's been with us today. He's with us every day. You can follow him too.
Can't get rid of
Great
me.
advice. And Blindside NRL, which if you're following us here, you're probably already following us. So yeah, We'll be doing 3 recordings today and 3 separate videos. So that's why me and Kenty will be wearing the same clothes. It's not because we don't wash, just in case you were wondering. But we'll see you on the next one.
All right. See you guys.